Good evening, everyone. My name is Alyssa Scarciotti. I'm the Clinical Education Manager here at Lexir Dental Laboratory Group. We appreciate you spending your Tuesday night with us. We have a great presentation for you. We are partnering with G&A Consulting, and our topic is Unlocking Potential in Full Arch Implant Care, How Clinical Workflow, Lab Partnerships, and Patient Marketing Drive Successful Full Arch Implant Programs. Just a couple little housekeeping items that I always like to make sure that we cover. We are really excited to provide a very interactive program tonight. So any questions or comments, use the Q&A section of Zoom. We have the chat disabled. So we're going to ask for some comments and some feedback throughout. So please make sure you put those in the Q&A section of Zoom. We will be having some polls as well. We do require everyone is earning 1 CE credit for the program tonight. We do require per AGD PACE compliance that you are present for the duration of the webinar. And we send those credits out 2 weeks after the course. They will come from education@lexair.com. And I'd love to present our presenters for this evening. So we have Ryan Napolitano. He has been with Lexir Laboratory for decades. I think we have several decades between the three of us. We have several decades of dental industry knowledge here. So we'll just leave it at that. But Ryan is our Senior Director of New Product Development and Innovation here at the lab. So always kind of staying on the cutting edge of what's new around full arch implants. So great resource for you. And then we have Greg Essenmacher, who is the CEO and founder of G&A Consulting. So Greg also has decades of experience in the dental industry and also a lot of that focused around full arch treatment and practice growth. So we're excited to round out a lot of what we've done on the clinical side for you on full arch programs and full arch education, and bring Greg in to kind of talk about this is all great, but how can I grow my practice and how can I get more of these types of cases as well? So I think between Ryan and Greg, we have a great mix for you tonight. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Greg and Ryan, and we'll kick things off.
Alyssa, I love it. It's how do you put butts in the chairs? Like, I mean, you can have all the clinical expertise in the world, but if you have no patience, well, if you have no patience, then you have no patience and you get upset with people quickly. That's a whole nother webinar. We might be doing that another time, another day. I'm thrilled. Thank you so much for Lexir for bringing this group together, for putting this on. Ryan, just to share a stage, a platform, a window. I don't know. What are people looking at? Their devices with you tonight? I mean, I'm super excited, right? Your clinical skills, your reputation precedes you. Good, bad, or
Oh,
indifferent.
thank
We'll
you.
let people
Right.
judge at the end. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll
for
see. We'll
sure. I
judge at
mean,
the end.
yeah, absolutely. And I hope, well, I'm hoping they're judging throughout, right? Alyssa framed it, right? This is interactive. Please be interactive. They put you on mute just because, sometimes a cat or a dog in the background or screaming at your kids. Hopefully you're not doing that, is a part of it. We've termed this the $1 million full arch opportunity. Why and how? Because what I know to be true, working with hundreds of practices across the country, actually across the globe, is that one more patient every single week, and we know that about 1 in 4 patients is a double arch. Even if you're charging somewhere between $18,000 and $20,000 an arch, I know the range can be much higher, and there's some doing it less. That's okay too. That would put over $1 million top line revenue into your practice. Think about that for a second. That's really the opportunity we're talking about. And then having the right partnerships, being able to have some discussion today about point counterpoint discussions of guided versus freehand, photogrammetry, do I need it, technology, when to bring it in, lead quality, marketing, all the things. We're going to touch on all the topics, and I'm super excited to be able to really uncover all of it. Like Alyssa said, there'll be polls, so we want to hear from you. So get ready with fastest fingers. There's no prize. Ryan, are there prizes? Did we bring
There
door
are no
prizes?
prizes tonight. I forgot
There's
them.
no prizes.
I
We
forgot the
forgot the
prize.
prizes. Okay, maybe next time. Hopefully next time there will be. So what we're going to tackle tonight really is talking about things that happen, right? Why do cases stall, both clinically and then patients? Why do patients stall as well? We'll talk about what we're considering the 3 pillars of clinical interest, right? Of scalable service lines in full arch specifically. The point counterpoint, we hope you find it entertaining. Well, I might even flip sides of what I'm supposed to take. I'm just going to throw Ryan off his game. That's my goal throughout the program tonight. And then also leads, qualification, financial readiness, case acceptance, all this stuff that's barriers to getting patients to say yes and moving forward. in order to get those brand new smiles, especially when it comes to full arch. So again, not a lecture, even though I'm kind of lecturing now, aren't I, Ryan? What's that all about?
We're lecturing a little bit, but I will encourage everyone, please, if you have a comment, a question, something like that, right down at the bottom, there's the little raise your hand icon. Go ahead and smash that. Alyssa will unmute you and we can get you part of the conversation. As Greg said, we do want to keep this interactive. He and I are going to duke it out a little bit, and I'm sure that there's going to be plenty of armchair quarterbacking happening at the same time.
Well, we would hope so. And especially in full arch, there's, opinions are like armpits. Everybody's got two and they all stink. Isn't that what I know they say something else, but we'll keep it above grade since it says CE course today. So again, one patient a week can really change the economics of a practice. We see it all the time with practices across the country, even with groups, small groups, emerging groups, DSOs that we work with, the same. It is literally able to do so. And we're talking about fixed full arch, but even if you're talking about overdenture cases, there's a lot of opportunity out there. When you're talking 36 to 38 million edentulous Americans, the opportunity is massive. It's not just a matter of can you add production, but can we do better as a society to be able to service these patients? And it's really being able to match what is their vision and goals with what we're able to do clinically, with technology, and with our team members in order to match their vision with what we're trying to accomplish. So that's where we want to start tonight and really have some conversation, because most practices don't fail because they're not good people, because they don't have skills. But what happens often? You take CE, you return excited, you do 2 or 3 cases that are sitting in your files, right? In your patient charts. And then the cases kind of stall and you're trying to figure out what does next look like. And so direct to patient marketing typically is what a next step is. And that's what we really do at G&A Consulting and focus on, to be able to start to generate those cases. And there's ways to do it and things to look for. And we'll definitely be talking about that towards the end of the program. We're going to do a lot more in the front end of the program and having more of that point counterpoint of how do I get there? How should I get there clinically? I know with those of you who registered, we asked a few questions up front. Thank you to those who were very honest and said, tried this, I've done this. Can you cover this? We'll do our best we can. And again, very interactive. Feel free to jump in whenever you like. There are no wrong answers. There are no wrong questions. We'll be able to handle whatever we can from our expertise level and from our perspective. And it's really all about best practices. And that's what we want to cover. Ryan, do you want to take off from here and just talk about 3 pillars that we're really going to talk about that are critical to success in full arch?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks. The first one obviously is the bar for entry, right? And that's clinical capability. This is not Implants 101 tonight. We're not talking about that. Really, it's the confidence that you have in your hands and in the training that you've received to know that you can confidently walk into that operatory and take on these cases. Without that type of confidence, you're really going to have to struggle in order to get through these cases, and you're not going to have consistent high quality outcomes. So that's really where we are. The pillar here is that we need to really focus on the clinical capabilities we have and understanding not only the clinical aptitude, but also rolled into that patient selection too, and knowing how to find that case that is going to be a successful case, but maybe B, more importantly, knowing when to pivot off of a case and say, this may not be the treatment that is best suited for that patient. It's a very, very important aspect. The second one, specialized lab partnership. Hi, how you doing? So one of the things that we talk about a lot is the focus of a laboratory and why your conventional crown and bridge laboratory, who may be serving you well for 20, 30 years, may not be the best suited for your full arch cases. There's a vast difference between the thought process of a high quality crown and bridge ceramics driven technician and the nuts and bolts driven implant focused technician. They're very different animals in how they look at cases, how we proceed with cases, and the thought process along the way. It's a really, really different experience. And the third one, really, when it comes down to it, not my forte, but certainly in Greg's wheelhouse, patient acquisition and case acceptance. This is what separates the more novice practice in full arch from that seasoned veteran who is as we talked about earlier, solving that $1 million equation. This is what makes that practice get to the next level and truly become that full arch engine that can drive a practice towards significant change.
Definitely a bold program to try to tackle all that. And, those first two pieces, definitely more your wheelhouse, Ryan. But I know enough about it to be dangerous when it comes to the clinical. So let's go into the danger zone. But before we do, this is the interactive portion of the program. So get your fastest fingers ready, whether you're on your laptop, your phones, your iPads. I don't know, maybe you've got like a homing device with like tinfoil at the top, whatever it is. So our first poll is coming up. And our first poll question: how many full arch cases have you completed in your practice? So go. It's your turn to put some information in. So 0, I'm a total newbie, up to 25, 25 to 100, more than 100, I am a pro. So they're
More than
they're
100
coming in fast.
More than 100, raise your hand. You're probably going to end up on the panel with us.
Yeah.
I know. Well, we've
And
got one. We've
Yeah,
got one
right.
so far. So whoever you are, like if you're not raising it, wait, I think I know who the one person is. I'm not going to call you out.
uh,
And he might actually be in the same city that I live in, but I'm not going to call that person out. But we're expecting some really good questions from that individual to raise their hand.
I
Okay, so
always
we've
like
got
to
some
add
really,
too, just briefly,
yeah,
just right that
please.
your poll questions are anonymous, so don't feel no shame in anyone's game, no matter where you stand in this. They're anonymous.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. And the participation is good. So definitely we've got a nice mix, Ryan. What are you seeing across the board? I know what I'm seeing, but what are you seeing so
Yep.
far?
That up to 25 range is a very good demographic right there, because that's somebody that has gotten involved with full arch. They've experienced a few different things. They've probably had one or two stumbles along the way too that have sharpened up their game and given them some good lessons along the way. The 25 to 100, I think that's where we're starting to get into that more seasoned team, right? That's the type of clinician that we look at that has the great assistants and they understand the process too. The front office staff is also keyed in on the full arch game, and it really starts to coalesce when we start getting into that range.
Yeah, love it. And for those of you who are in the first category, right, total newbie, congratulations. I'm so glad that you're here because you're
First good step.
investing in what the future can look like and preparing before you even do your first case. That is noble, and I really want to call that out because that's super important, right? Knowledge is power. Love it. All right, let's jump right in. Our very first thing that we're going to start talking about today, right, is the big question that everybody loves to talk about, and that is, let me see if I can get that off the screen. So, guided versus freehand. So, I like a good guide, right? I like to be guide. Like if I go on a hike, I want that GPS, I want that trail tracker. If I go on a trip, I can be in my own city. I could be heading over to my son's house and still use the GPS. I still do. It's what I am. It's who I am. And so that is me. And I mean, certainly we can talk about like why guides are not necessarily the best option, but the predictability, the one of the things that I know to be true, Ryan, and tell me that I'm wrong. It's okay. I'm wrong often. Just ask my husband. So one of the things that I know to be true is that guides, there's a lot of time and effort because it saves chair time. It does, right? When it works, not always, like you've got to have the skill freehand. But what I know to be true is that it saves chair time, but there's also more planning time on the front end, whether
Mhm.
you're doing it or whether you're outsourcing it and there's a fee involved. So
Yep.
this is what I know to be true. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I want to not, I want to be honest here, right?
Yep.
Because on the bottom one, right, I'm going right to that bottom bullet point because everybody talks about the money about a guide, right? It's more expensive,
It is, but I think that truer words were never spoken. It saves chair time, not time. So the thing to remember with guides is if you value speed in the chair and being able to predictably move through a case and you know your system well, a guide is a great option. But you're going to spend more time in front of your laptop talking with me or another lab guy, designing and reviewing your case, approving, and making sure that all of your work is done before you get into the operatory, right? The best analogy is pro football. We do all of our learning when we're in meetings and when we're watching video. When we're on the field, it's just go time. You have everything there. It's muscle memory, and you're off to the races. So for me, I'll take a step back and say that Greg is the guy who wants to be guided and has the GPS along the way. I'm the type of guy who tells you to take a left where Kmart used to be, and
Yeah.
you should know where we're going. So, in that aspect,
You're not
sometimes,
showing your age at all by talking about Kmart, Ryan. I'm just saying, because I
all right.
know at least half our attendees were thinking that.
Yeah, it is what you have to bear with me. I am from the 1900s, right? It's and so when I look at it, I think guides are fantastic tools for speed in the chair, but they're not going to reduce your time overall, right? It still takes careful planning and preparation to have success in the chair, right? And I
And
think the
certainly,
biggest thing, oh, I was
yeah.
going to say the biggest thing for me though is that for the very novice user, the first couple of guide cases are daunting, right? It can be, not always, but it can be the IKEA of dentistry. You have a lot of parts and pieces going on. There's a lot of sequence going on. And the first time or two that you use that product, it can be a lot. It can be a lot. And you need to really lay out everything in advance. You need to look at it. You need to understand what's going on. Even have a little coaching over the shoulder for the first one or two is always a nice option to have as well if you're lucky enough to have someone who's going to come by locally. But that's my 2 cents on it, right? Speed in the chair absolutely takes a little bit to get to proficiency level.
Well, and I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I think
Hmm.
you were really going right down the path I was, that with the predictability for early stages, but having that chairside tech with you, right? It's more of the pre-planning and having somebody like there to guide you, right? To help along the way. But there is those critical aspects of, the pin positioning guide, probably the most important thing, especially if nothing comes on and off and everything's stacked on top. If you're using a stackable guide, and we are talking full arch, we're not talking about a single, we're not talking about a pilot guide. We're talking about fully guided, right? At least
Fully
I am,
guided.
and that's where I'm going
Osteotomy
there. Fully
guide,
guided.
pins,
Yes,
the whole works.
bone reduction guide, the whole shebang. So definitely with a higher level of technical skill, but also if it is like early stages, for those in the poll early stages or earlier on, having that predictability on that end, certainly better. And what I was going to add is the extra set of eyes, especially in the planning phase. So often, and working with labs who do guide, my gosh, for a long time, guides in full arch, at least a dozen years on my end, that extra set of eyes of implant placement, angulation, options going forward, that extra set of eyes for that security of, oh, here's an option that I maybe didn't consider, or what they've seen to be more predictable going forward. Because
Yeah.
any good lab that's a full arch lab will have a library of 130 to 150 implant systems. So it doesn't really matter what system you're using either. It can be any system, really. I mean, there's some that are better than others. And so I think that really plays into it as well. Wouldn't you agree?
It would. It would. And I'll tell you this, I still don't do my own guide planning. And you know why? I don't have a dentist on staff. And I think that that's a crucial aspect when you're looking at who to partner with for guides. The planning is going to make it or break it, right? And quite honestly, at the end of the day, I've been in hundreds of full arch cases and sat and seen good, bad, and indifferent and ugly.
Yeah.
I didn't go to dental school. I don't have the degree. I haven't held the handpiece in my hand. I'm not the guy who's going to do your planning, right? That's why I partner with people who have dentists on staff, who have gone through this, who have the degree that says, I'm in the same boat that you're in. And that to me is an extra layer when we're talking about extra set of eyes. That's the extra layer that I like to see on there because I have that clinical knowledge behind me saying, we looked at this, we all are in agreement, and we can look at this on a very, very high clinical level. So that another aspect for me.
Yeah, doctor to doctor, right? And it's not some tech on a bench who like played a lot of asteroids when they were younger. There's that reference to age thing, just in case anybody doesn't know with the rollerball in the arcade, right? Oh, well, this is red, so I have to change the angulation. So I think that's amazing. Now let's talk freehand, right? Because there is more freedom in freehand where you're not locked into a plan. And I
Hmm.
think that that amount of freedom is where so many clinicians enjoy that, where it's I can place them where I see it. This is how I've been taught. There isn't the need for pre-planning. And I'm going to venture to say, and I'm going to make a really bold statement. If anybody wants to come at me, bro. That's okay. So many of the courses where they teach implant placement, especially full arch treatment placement, right, are freehand because of patient selection and all of the record taking that's necessary and the planning that's necessary prior to. So it's so much easier to put on full arch courses, especially if it's live patients, freehand, than it is guided because of the preparation. What do you think?
It is. I mean, I can do a freehand case with two alginates and a bite, right? It doesn't take a lot, right? But I think that that inherently can be a trap because, when we talked about the three pillars and we talked about clinical focus and clinical skill and success here, if you don't have the clinical prowess to select the right patient, this could be the pitfall that you step in. And when, many of us who have been in surgery have opened up a field, you look at the bone and you say, huh, well, I didn't expect it to look that way. Right. And you say,
Yes.
right. And now we're starting to, rub our hands together a little bit, a couple of beads of sweat, and we're trying to figure out where we're going to put those implants. Uh, and so the freehand for the adept user offers the most flexibility. You have a blank palette to work with. And I think that the other aspect that I enjoy about freehand cases is that we are setting up the case from the tooth position and working our way down. So it's a bit of a flip when we think about how many surgical cases, not all, are planned, right? The surgical cases, when we're talking about guided, I'm looking at the bone, I'm looking at the ideal site and saying, I can put an implant here, I can put an implant there. I get so fixated looking at the bone quality, I forget the angulation and where the teeth are going to go sometimes. And at that point, we're really just building it, in that old fashioned kind of mindset of saying, I put the implants where the bone was. And then when we get to restore the case, now we're kind of struggling as to what are we going to do here? And so for
Mm.
me, freehand builds in the way that my brain thinks, right? We build teeth down, right? And I can say, this is my endpoint. I need to support it properly. Here's where my implants should go. How close can I get to that position?
Right. And the other piece that I think of when it comes to freehand as well, because I have been in over 1,000 full arch cases in the operatory for that many cases. And that comes to do with my history and what I've done, and that I've been so focused on full arch. So I feel like I've been in a practice, even though like my coaches are the ones who have actually like sold cases to patients. I have not. It is the concept or the challenge of over drilling. And I know that that can happen as well in guided surgery. However, with Hounsfield units and different calibrations that they can do with CT scans when doctors are helping to plan the cases, such a great point that you made earlier. Wait, I shouldn't be giving you credit for stuff, and put a pin in that. Everybody will know why here in a few minutes. But such a great point that those watchouts because of bone density and the tendency at times, especially for newer clinicians, but it can happen to anybody, of over drilling osteotomies. And then you go from, a diameter of 3.5 to a 4.1 to a 4.3, depending on the implants, to a 5.0. And it's suddenly, okay, I can't go any wider and I'm getting no torque whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then you're in a situation where you can't load that same day. You've made hopefully you didn't make promises to patients. We'll get to that later, right? But of like walking out with teeth, at least healing teeth that day when they've made this huge investment and then they're walking out disappointed because there has been a situation where there's been over drilling of an osteotomy. Have you
Yeah.
seen that? No, never when you're in a case.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, and I think that For me, over drilling osteotomies is more problematic when we talk about guide cases. All right, because a lot of what we're doing with that guided case is so rigid and so uh foundationally driven to be every step is built on the previous one that if
Mm,
we start with our osteotomy guide and we start, over drilling or whatever the case may be, or you say, I just want a little bit more, and you start going and seeing if you can get a little bit more depth than the guide wants to give you, that's when we start to get into that problematic area. And a little, it can be death by a thousand paper cuts along the way. And so little errors early on in a guided case can turn into bigger problems when we start getting to the restorative phase of it. Freehand is a little bit more loosey-goosey for me in that regard, where we can take up the slack as we go along. And it's a little bit more fluid of a process. I think when I have patients that are, let's say, marginal in bone quality and quantity, if we've decided that, loading the case and being the full arch case is the modality for the day, I'm gonna pick freehand when it comes to those cases that are marginal, right? I want to have the flexibility to bail on a site, move to another site, make some changes on the fly, do what I have to do. I hate seeing a case where we look at a tool as a philosophy and say every case has to be guided. And then we look at a marginal
right.
patient, you do all of this pre-planning work with the best of intentions, and you get in there and you say, these sites are awful. I can't work with this. Right. And everything
Mm.
we did ends up in the garbage can. And that's not a great day, right? That's not a great day for the patient. It's not a great day for anyone's stress level. It just turns into a bad experience. And that can happen. That can happen, fairly easy with a younger clinician in their journey, thinking that they're doing the best thing for a case.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily the outcome that you've desired. Well, now it's time for the interactive portion. We've got our second poll because we just want to know, because Ryan and I both think that we're best at everything. And so the poll is who won round one?
I don't even know what
So
we were fighting
guided
about
and
here.
freehand conversation, was it Ryan or Greg? Oh, look, I've see all my friends are in. Oh, I
Oh,
like it. They're voting for me, Ryan.
oh man.
Oh, look at it. Oh no.
Oh, there we
Oh
go. Okay,
no.
all right. I'm
Oh
feeling a little
no.
bit better here.
Oh no. Okay,
Coming
good.
back,
Yes, back
clawing.
to me. Back to
Oh,
Greg. Yes. Oh
neck and
no.
neck.
Oh no. Oh no. What's it? Oh, oh, there we go.
Oh,
Another. Oh, oh,
Very close.
I
oh.
think right now it's
Yes.
at the point where who begs more,
Yes.
Now, I
right?
want to mention you
Yes.
guys can't sway this because I think that they can't see this until I end and share the poll, by the way.
Yes.
So
Go.
it's
Go.
they will
Go.
not know until the
Go.
final. So we'll give
Yes,
it
I
like
know.
a couple more
I can see
seconds
it.
for final.
All the attendees are like, what is wrong with Greg? There's a lot wrong with me, just so you know. The list is really long and we're only here for an hour,
All right, so
people.
I'll give the sympathy votes then. That's what we're gonna go for.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah,
I'm getting
the
the
votes
pity vote.
are live. So our winner, 62% goes to Greg with Ryan coming in at
Yes.
38%.
I'm calling my debate
Yes.
coach in high school and telling him that he lied to me.
I, oh,
Excellent.
thank you for
All
all of
Dwayne
your
right.
Drew's
Well,
support.
that's a
I'm
wrap on
waiting for
the
the
friendly
concession
competition.
phone call from Ryan. I want to hear it. I want to hear the concession phone call.
Greg, you ran a great race, and I want to congratulate you on the hours spent.
Yes, thank you to all those who participate. It's very important to exercise your right to vote. As an American, I think it's important. Okay. All right.
I got to
Enough
figure
of
out how to
that. So thank
gerrymander
you,
the next
everyone.
one.
Right. Yeah. That I think you should. Okay. So next up, round two. Let's talk about technology and that. Since we talked about guides, we know that there's other ways to skin a cat, right? So let's talk about photogrammetry, right? For
Oh,
those
let's.
who don't know, right? So if you do a free-handed case, right? Or even if you do a guided case, because you can use photogrammetry to scan for a final, right? So there's multiple ways. I don't really think of it that way just because I'm a simpleton, right? I am not as clinically minded as Ryan. I don't have the experience that he has. I'm still being exposed more to. So is photogrammetry, like the big question, is it more of an essential upgrade? Or if you're earlier, is it more of a premature investment? So, I guess a better question, is it good or is it right for you right now? So I want to kind of uncover and unpack this because we know, and we could sit here and name like Micron Mapper, ICAM, we can go to Shining 3D. I mean, we could go through all of them, certainly, and name all the ones that are out there. But I'd like to just stay agnostic and talk about the technology, right? People want it because one, it's sexy. Let's just talk about it, right? People, oh, I use photogrammetry. Like, okay, great. Like, you go to a conference and you get to talk about it. But I mean, the reality behind it is it gives a lot more flexibility, right? Because you can put in coat hangers and then you can scan and it goes off to somewhere, right? Unless you're doing it internally, but most are probably sending it off somewhere, whether it's like in the same house, right? Under the same roof or off somewhere. And that design comes back most of the time, unless you're like delivering it 24 hours later of surgery, most are same day, like within an hour. And suddenly now it can be shot to your printer. You can print out the temporary healing teeth. You can, stain and glaze polish, and in the mouth it goes, which is reducing like, this fun little metal cylinders, which you had to pack because if you have to pack them, because if you don't, then you lock in the screws. You don't want to do that. Ask me how I know. These are all the fun stuff. So, Brian, in your
Yeah.
expert opinion, because you've used this a lot more than I have in technology, because since starting G&A Consulting 4.5 years ago, I'm not in nearly as many surgeries as I used to be. What are you seeing as far as essential upgrade, premature investment, at what point? And then we'll talk a little bit more
Yeah.
about that as well. I would love your feedback on this.
Well, I definitely think you're right. It started out as the sexy option, right? And it was, photogrammetry practitioners were kind of like the CrossFit people of dentistry. Like, how do you know someone does CrossFit? Don't worry, they'll tell you. It was the
Yeah.
same thing with photogrammetry. And it was, from me, it was a reincarnation of the CEREC dentist, right? The early adopters at this love the technology. They're the guys that want to play with all the toys and, basically have their own in-house lab, in-house everything. Maybe they're in the Ryan Dunlop School with Full Arch Masters and they're doing all of that work. That's great, right? And I look at that as hearts and minds, right? That people are passionate about the technology, passionate about the treatment, and they love every aspect of it, even the mundane stuff like cutting their zirconia out of the puck and staining and glazing it. Happy days.
Mm.
As we see more mass market adoption now, right? And we can say that this has been going on in a stable way for what, maybe 8 years, give or take, you know.
Yeah, definitely
Um,
post COVID, right?
yeah. Yeah. Post COVID, we're seeing the hockey stick jump up with,
Yeah.
adoption here. As that hockey stick ramps up, we're past those early adopters and we're into, more of that, that leading third, if you will. And with those, the doctors understand that there's a benefit to technology. They want to experience these good workflows and see how it's going to help them in their practice, but they're not necessarily the ones who are jumping on board because they love it, right? They know that there's a business proposition for this and a clinical proposition for this. They don't necessarily want a lab in their back room. They want to take the case, do what they need to do, throw it out the door to whomever is going to, satisfy their needs and move on to the next clinical task, right?
Mm.
Those are the doctors that understand that if their hands aren't moving in the operatory, they're not really adding to the bottom line of the practice. And so I think
Yeah.
that as we see this develop, we're seeing a shift away from while you wait temporaries, people printing or milling while the patient's in the chair and everything. And I'm seeing a lot more uh not acquiescence, but a lot more understanding that they can get this case done in clinically acceptable terms in a 24, 48-hour turn time, and they can go about their business, right? Maybe the day of, they deliver the patient an immediate denture, call it a day, say, come back 2 days, we're going to give you your temporary. And that seems to be where the shift is. And I think the other part of it is, we'll segue into the hesitation part of the capital expenditure with the quality of scanners on the market that we're seeing today. Like you said, the Shining 3D, the new Lumina, the Trio 6, even the X3 from Straumann for that matter. The quality of the intraoral scanner has gotten so good that you don't necessarily need the specialized equipment that you did 4 or 5 years ago. And I think that blurs the line and opens up a much larger segment of the dental population to enjoy the benefits of this therapy without having to fork over 30 or $40,000 on really a one-trick pony scanner that they cross their fingers is going to make them money.
Yeah, I think that first of all, like the fact that you said it's the CrossFit of dentistry, like you almost lost me there. I almost had to go off camera. I thought I was going to lose it for sure. But you really point out something that is critically important because anyone that we work with at GNA Consulting, we talk about this all the time. If it were just about patient acquisition and team development and coaching and trying to get more patients to say yes to full arch treatment, I think it's probably the biggest disservice when folks focus on that one silo or that one piece because it really should be about their P&L and spendable cash. Like how much do you have to put in order to get out? Because what's in the bank is what you can spend. So for you to talk about like the doctor expense, the most expensive thing in a practice is the doctor's time. Let me repeat that. It's not equipment. The most expensive thing in a practice is a doctor's time. And so if we can reduce the doctor's time, we should be looking at that in a way that's an investment. And so you mentioned Shining 3D. They even have like they're combined, right? Photogrammetry iOS, right? So, and you reach out if you want more information. Like there's others, and I'm not just calling out one because the technology advances to be able to do things. And I want to call out one more because also patient volume is so critically important. You can have all the technology in the world. You can walk into a practice that's a Shangri-La that is going bankrupt, right? And we've seen that too. So it's not just about that. And so the other piece that I want to talk about, because there's other pieces in between. So I think it's Keystone that has Nexus, right? So that's a different system too that isn't photogrammetry. And I know we're talking photogrammetry, but there's a lot of different ways to be able to get a tremendous amount of accuracy because if we're talking about reduction of doctor time, reduction of time in general, and increased accuracy, because that's really what we're talking about, right? And not the back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Because the old days, especially in full arch, right? The old days where it was you put the cylinders, right? You put the rubber dams, you put in the little tubes to make sure that you stuff the cotton so you don't block up the screw holes, right? Then you put the acrylic, then you go in the back and you bore it out the holes, and then you do you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
You're
And
gonna
back and
have to
forth.
stop. I'm gonna have to get my blankie and get a little bit of alone time. You're
PTSD, right?
scarring me on
The
this one.
3-4 hours and the patient's just sitting there coming out here. Give him some juice. Give him some, I mean, what is that, right? But that's what we're talking about. All of this technology and innovation, dentistry used to be looked at as they're so far behind in technology. But the last 5 or 10 years, that hockey stick you talk about, right? So talk to me a little bit because I'm not as familiar with Nexus, but I know there's a high level of adoption that's going on with lab partnerships and clinicians. Tell me, tell everyone, right, a little bit about that because I think that can be critically important as another piece that might be another solution that's much more cost effective as well if they're looking for efficiencies.
Yeah, palatable to make pun. uh,
Ah,
one of the things that we've discovered, the colloquial we, dentistry as a whole, have discovered over time is that number one, like I mentioned, the accuracy of the intraoral scanner went way up, right? It's a war of how fast can you do it and how accurate can you be. That is in everyone's best interest because the scanners are better every generation. Now we've gotten to a point where the line between the accuracy of the photogrammetry scanner and the intraoral scanner as a device are kind of on par, right? That's not to say the whole system is accurate, right? But the scanning technology is pretty much on par. So then it comes down to what am I scanning? One of the things that science has showed us in a lot of the studies that you can find in journals is that intraoral scanners don't like large height discrepancies in the scans. So if I have a flat area of tissue and I have these giant ship masts all the way across the arch, normal scan bodies, I have a tough time, right? The assistant has a tough time. There's a side that's missing, it's blurry, I got a double scan. Because they understood the limitation, that's where you see these new generation, let's call them grammetry systems, right? Almost photogrammetry, grammetry. And what they found is that, hey, let's take this giant scan body and we'll just turn it sideways. I'm going to keep it low to the tissue. I'm going to make it easy for the scanner to capture this super accurate scanning device. And let's see what happens. Lo and behold, works pretty well. And that has allowed us to see the advent of systems like Nexus iOS, the True Abutment, True IO. I think I got that name wrong, but the True Abutment system. Straumann has an upcoming system coming out very, very soon. All of these systems rely on this horizontal scan technology to really play into the accuracy of your intraoral scanner. So these systems understand that there's a lot of doctors that have an intraoral scanner, better than 50% of the dental population. That's a much bigger market than the maybe 1% of the dental market that has a specified photogrammetry scanner. So when we look at this, this opens the doorway for a lot of people to take advantage of really good technology and get into a workflow that, to even the trained eye is on par with the accuracy we're seeing along the way, right? So we're really blurring those lines between that traditional photogrammetry system and this newer, let's say, grammetry system. Equal results, much lower threshold to entry, and the ability to have these great digital results. Again, as you said, saves time for the clinician, opens up a lot of possibilities along the way.
Yeah, and it's really the market being responsive to, or the marketplace, right? Manufacturers being responsive to where can we get the most appeal, right, to those that have the equipment already in place. And that goes back to the original, talking about the 36, 38 million edentulous Americans. How can we service them more and make it more appealing to them, right, to be able to service them? And I love that. Okay, so poll question time. So what option do you think is necessary for your particular next stage of growth in full arch, specific for you? Poll time. Alyssa, get that.
All
She's like, I'm
that.
Hang on
scrambling for
once.
the
I know it's
poll.
let me just
Scrambling
see.
for the
Right.
poll.
Does the poll
I can
result is
sing.
being
I can
shared?
hum the Jeopardy theme.
Oh,
I
I know.
popped it on
Okay,
to
sorry.
Oh,
We're
Alyssa.
still
yeah.
She
on
was
who won
there. It is.
round one.
Okay.
Okay.
Ah, brings
Oh
it
yeah,
back.
we already know who won. Yeah, bring it
Brings
back.
it
Yeah.
back.
She brings it back
Okay,
just to
here we
rub
go.
it in.
There we
Okay.
All
go.
right.
Yeah. See, did you notice we're not finding out who won round two?
Yeah.
We're just gonna leave the round one winner
Rush that
as
one
Greg.
under
Like
the.
that's just gonna add infinitum. Like once you win once, you don't go back. This is not like the prime minister race of like England, like of Great Britain. We're not going back, right? You don't go back to Parliament and like call another election. You just sit in that seat. All right, so we've got some coming in. So photogrammetry next by Keystone. I don't need anything. I'm awesome. I love that there's some people saying that. Oh, and if
And
you're
then,
putting other, feel free to raise
Yeah.
your hand. I'd love to be able to hear what the other is. But yeah, I love that I don't need anything.
Yeah.
I'm awesome. Who created that question, Ryan?
I'm gonna give that credit to Alyssa. She was, yep. She normally throws in a couple of nice ones.
yeah, you
Throws
got to
in a
keep it fun.
doozy, right?
I do want to
Right.
point out to you guys, we have about 15 minutes left, so I just want to make sure we can get through everything. So just want a little time check.
Talk faster.
Talk faster. Stop BSing and get to the meat.
All right, so I'm
That's
gonna
right.
end the poll
Talk
here.
faster.
And if you guys want to do a quick analysis, so let me share the results.
All right. Well, it looks like despite my best efforts, everyone wants to drop all their hard-earned money on a photogrammetry scanner. So,
Interesting.
but you know
There you
what?
go. Well, I mean, it's close, right?
It's close, but
It's
you know what
close.
though? I mean, better than 50% of the poll says a digital workflow for me is going to bring me to another level, right? And I think that is saying something right there. Reading between the lines, I think we're not exactly happy with a more analog or, current workflow that we're in, and we're looking to jump into that next category, right? And
Yep.
I will tell you, I full disclosure, I sat on my hands for a long time with photogrammetry because I wanted to wait for the dust to settle a little bit and find out who was going to really be a player in the space before me as being involved in a bigger lab group. It's a big ship for me to turn, and I can't do small maneuvers very easily.
Yeah. Yeah, you aren't a U-boat. You've got that battleship. You've got to turn it
Yep.
slowly. And so, Alejandro, thank you for the question comment because I think you're probably one that put in the other. And his comment was he wants more streamlined processes for me and my staff. And it popped up for me and my staff to get better case acceptance and ease case workups. So we definitely have to move a little bit faster because case acceptance gets a little bit later. So that's why I think Alyssa was cracking the whip on us and saying, "All right, so let's
Let's
get on
burn it.
with it." So let's get on with it. Let's move it along here, people.
I know we got a
So
lot of
when
good
does
stuff
advanced
ahead.
technology actually make sense? So this is what we were talking about. So Ryan, I'm going to start the clock. I'm going to give you 60 seconds. Walk through when does it make sense?
Yep. It makes sense at the end, right? There's so many foundational elements to work on first. To Alejandro's point, getting the staff on board, getting everyone comfortable with a clear progression of how the cases move, first and foremost, right? The technology at the end is the cherry on top of the sundae that really gives you that boost. But this is the meat and potatoes along the way that you have to get through in order to really enjoy the benefits of that digital technology at the end.
Love it. And well done. That was under 60 seconds. I'm really proud of you. So if I had a prize, I would give it to you. Here's a virtual gift card for you.
There you
For
go.
$5 to Starbucks, you can buy one cup,
Perfect.
one
Refill
tall
the
cup of
coffee
black
mug
coffee.
as
I know,
always.
right? Refill your coffee. See, I know you. So let's talk about next, like why a specialized full arch lab matters. And I like to talk about because I'm a big fan of Phil Jackson, right? 11 Rings, his book 11 Rings, although he couldn't beat my bad boy Pistons even with Michael Jordan in 89 and 90, just putting it out there. But he had his triangle offense, right? Which, was very, very effective. And so I talk about the triangle of success, right? When I speak all over the country and I work with practices, meaning, especially if you're early on, have an experienced implant company that's really good in full arch, have an experienced full arch lab that's really good in full arch, and you be the rookie. Don't have more than one rookie in that triangle if you want a triangle of success. And so that's where I get to because if they know full arch really well and they're using cases, if you're going to do it guided, or even if not, and you're just getting some advice on X, Y, or Z, any parts or pieces or any part of the process, go to an experienced full arch lab. Ask me how I know. Over
Yep.
1,000 cases. Trying to cheap out, save a few bucks here. They've already always done my crown and bridge work. I've known them for 30 years. That's all well and good. It doesn't mean you have to kick them to the curb permanently, but when and if you're going to be serious about doing full arch, be serious about full arch. Get the right partner for it. You don't have to kick them out for everything else, but get a good full arch lab. That like it's so critically important. Ryan, I'll let you talk about it, but I know this is like your baby and I don't want you to feel like a shill talking about it and like what the advantages are, but I've seen it over and over and over and over, those that have done it well and those that have not so much, right? Sitting there and chasing the bite because they never had good records beforehand. Like you never get it back, right? It's
Yep.
like fishing in a pond with no fish. Like
Yep.
you'll never get it back, right? So
No,
talk to me a little bit about this and what you've seen and why it is such a critically important thing. And again, remember on the clock, Alyssa's going to start tapping her wrist here
absolutely.
soon. We've
Well,
got one more
here's my
topic.
anecdote about that. I'm a sucker for a great Crown and Bridge laboratory, like a really fantastic Crown and Bridge laboratory. I have more books on exotic porcelain work that are just wonderful to look at. I even had a 2-day course at the at my laboratory hosted by a very, very famous Japanese technician out on the West Coast. And he came into the laboratory, and I spent almost 3 hours learning about perikimata, which are the tiny horizontal striations and the gingival third of your tooth. And we had to do that because we were like so engrossed in what we were doing, all for a single central. It was a great course. But you know what? All of the guys there, I wouldn't trust them with my implantology to save my life. Right? They are fantastic ceramists. Unbelievable. Wouldn't trust them with an implant case to save my life. It's a different technician, like I said before, that knows about the physics, the geometry involved in cases, what goes into a good case, what doesn't. Someone being nimble with parts and pieces, either chair side or knowing when to pivot in a design. These are all skills that are strictly the implantologists and the implant labs domain. You're not going to find somebody, it's very rare to find somebody who is adept at that level in implantology who is also a crown and bridge specialist too. So nowadays, in the modern age of dental labs, any full service lab is a jack of all trades, master of none, right? Again, ask me how I know. The modern dental laboratories you're seeing are all splintering off to become focused laboratories for a reason. They know they're good at one thing and they're not trying to BS their way through five different things. And that's what we're seeing even in my own organization. We're doing some big things over the next 3 weeks. So we have some really fun announcements coming at the beginning of May uh, that play right into what we're talking about here. It really is a specialized game that you have to play.
Yeah, and I love that. And I don't want to be dismissive of this, but I also don't want to sit on it too long because I don't want it to be a promo piece like for what you all have coming up. But we do have some more information here in just a little bit on that. So I want to ask everybody our last poll question because this is my lane and this is what we do at G&A Consult. So are
Mm.
you currently marketing Full Arch specifically as a separate initiative in your practice? Yes or no? It's okay, whatever your answer is, but we certainly want to know, especially it sounds like Alejandro, like you want to know how to make your team work and click and function, and that's what we're going to spend our last topic on. And it's okay, doesn't
That's
matter
an
what the
important one.
answer is, and we're getting some answers coming in. Love it. Tick 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 comes the poll. I love
Yeah.
it.
Give it a few more
And you know
seconds.
what? I think this poll mirrors well the first poll that we saw as well,
Mhm.
right? If we
Yeah,
look at
and
this and
some
we
may
put it
have
in,
tried it too. Yeah, and
Mhm.
said, "Hey, you know what? That really didn't work for me, or it wasn't working for me. What was going on?" And it's not surprising, right? It's not surprising because it can be it can be a waste, a death trap. We tried that; it didn't work. Awesome. And so show the results absolutely. So we've got a handful that are, and most that aren't. Totally okay. If you're going to walk down this path, critically important. Even if you're not, let's talk about what some best practices are for specialized marketing if you're going to market to full arch patients. The reason why specific full arch marketing, and a couple of things. One, targeting specific full arch patients does not mean that you're putting up ads that say, come for fixed full arch. Let me just start right there. Because if you're targeting to the broadest audience that are going to be able to be drawn to, it's critically important that you know what you're trying to attract. Two, if you're going to pay anyone an ad management fee, right? Not a promo from anyone, doesn't matter who it is. I can go right down the list that do full arch marketing, and there's about 15 of them that I'm aware of, know of, and that some of our clients in our coaching and whatnot work with. Okay. Make sure that there's transparency of everything that you get. There's about 112 Google Analytics that you can get and should be getting on a regular basis. Transparency of everything. As much as the ads are important, your team development is just as important. There
Mm.
should be a communication loop 360 between ads, capturing the leads, converting the leads, meaning the person or persons that are handling the leads, right? If everybody's responsible, nobody's responsible. Kind of goes back to what Ryan was saying
Yeah.
before, right? One person that's primarily responsible for converting those leads in full arch. It's not so much about the what, the prosthesis. We've been talking a lot about the clinical. It's the why. It's the emotional connection for the patient. Why now, Sally? You've had a bombed out mouth for 15 or 20 years. Why did you answer the ad and why do you want to come in and see us now? What is that factor? What is the vision you're trying to accomplish? Right? Is it that your daughter's getting married and those pictures are forever? Or is it that you're back in the dating pool and you hide your mouth? Is it that you don't go out to eat with your husband anymore because you're too embarrassed to chew in public? Like getting to that, you asking those direct questions are difficult. Indirect questions, it's a whole nother thing. The
Yeah.
other thing that I'll tell you that is so frustrating is when companies try to shortchange it. Well, we'll pre-qualify them. We'll pre-qualify them, and what we'll do for you is we will get all the answers for you up front. Only if they have a credit score of so high will we bring them in. The amount and percentage of patients that you are denying even an opportunity to have a conversation with you because of that. What if they have an uncle, sister, neighbor, brother, mother who have seen them in that current condition for so long and they want to help? Well, if their credit score is bad,
Good point.
what about the people who have actually been seeing them all along? Or what if it's your Nona and she doesn't really have a credit score because she's never believed in credit cards because she actually grew up like, I don't know, born in the depression era and she's like 85 years old, but she has another 10 years of life to live. And she takes her money and stuffs it under the mattress. Like she's not going to have a good credit score. So the elimination of or the forcing into a box is something that becomes terribly problematic. And so these are some of the things that you are told by others in marketing, patient experience, team development that are so horribly wrong that limits your opportunities to be able to make connections with patients before they even come into your practice, before they even come and see you as a clinician, unless we have more than clinicians, which I know we have a few more than clinicians. And honestly, it is a travesty, and it's where so much is being missed because people are talking either too clinical to patients or they're talking too financial, and they're forgetting that this is an emotional journey for patients. You're trying to do
It's
a
a great
life-changing
point, Greg.
procedure for them.
That's a great point, Greg. And you know what, quite honestly, I think that's one that even I glossed over too, right? The elimination and setting those bars too high. That's a very, very that's a very, very nice point to make.
Because so often I was just on a conversation with a client of ours that we're working with. And the challenge is so often with clinicians, and all the clinicians I'm going to talk directly to you right now, you've worked so hard to become clinically competent in this, right? You want to show your expertise level and competence clinically. It doesn't mean that you've got to go 100% soft and be all mushy and everything by showing empathy. However, being able to take one piece and identify and story sell in that one piece with the patient to make connection with them so there's believability, and then being the clinical hero with them, that's the transitional piece that gets them to believe you. And that's where the qualification piece, because your team can develop that. It's so critically important because understanding that the journey, right? And take pictures of this, learn this. This is how the in office consultation is really most critically going to evolve in your practice for success, right? They have a reason to come in and see you, something. And number three is the most critical because it's either timing and or seriousness. Something occurred with them, especially if you're doing any type of direct to patient, direct to consumer, you're trying to reach out to them. The investment range is where so many people think that they've got to answer the question. Patients don't have any money. Okay, well, what I'll tell you is how many people in Section 8 housing do you see walking around with a new iPhone 17? It's called motivation. If you can connect with the patient, not all, but many can move forward. That's a connecting to the patient's vision. They use logic and emotion. And so often, dentistry is about logic. You have a toothache. We need to take care of that. This is what your insurance will cover. This is what we can do. In full arch, it's so much more that it's an emotional decision. And we forget how to come over to the emotional side of the decision. It's the same clinically, Ryan. And the truth is, it is clinically. Can I do it clinically? Can I create this bridge, this bar, screw it in? Can I deliver on that? But the artistry behind it is something that's
Yeah.
critically important. And that's what you know from your side. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I would, right? And it's making that's the part where you make the patient smile become real, right? And that's the joy in the process. Yeah, I mean, there's the can we do it? Yep, and then there's the why we do what we do. And being
Well,
able
the
to
good
have that
news
emotional connection in somebody's smile and the teeth that you make is very fulfilling.
Well, the good news is we covered a lot of topics and unfortunately not a ton of time. But the really good news is that for those of you that are in the Northeast or that like to travel, that there is going to be some follow-up programming that we'll do post what webinars. So we'll be doing a Thursday evening program, a steakhouse presentation. Don't worry, my time won't get cut short. My time will be cut long there. We'll probably flip it and do the case presentation because you got to have the patients before you can do the clinical side. So that'll be a Thursday evening program. It'll be June 4th and 5th in Rhode Island. And then the Friday, the day after at the Rhode Island lab. And we're really excited about that. There'll be a full arch team at Precision Craft. Myself, my team will be on there as well. We'll definitely drill down a lot more into a lot of the patient experience, case acceptance, patient acquisition, and things of that nature. And we'd love for you to join. There'll be a lot more information that we'll have for sure in that. And so I just want to end that full arch, it doesn't need to be complicated, right? Clinical training, laboratory partnership, patient acquisition strategy, all that together, when those align, that's where we can really get to success and being able to service all those edentulous patients that are out there. And I'm just really honored. I'm going to turn it back over to Alyssa to be able to wrap things up here. And I think I got in the hour. We did. We got in under the
did.
hour. Ryan, I'm so proud of you. So please,
That's it. We
Alyssa,
turned
take
and burned in
over.
those last 15 minutes.
Way
We
to,
got it
way
done.
to understand the assignment. That's great. We do like to try to keep it right within the time that we have. But as Greg mentioned, we have a lot more to cover. So we hope that you can join us for the program in June. More information to come on that. I'm sure we'll be doing this again or other similar webinars. So please keep an eye out. My final request for this evening is just if you could take a quick moment and pull out your phone, scan the QR. That gives us feedback on how everything went tonight, anything that we could do differently, anything that you might like to see for future CE topics is very helpful. We definitely take your feedback very seriously. So
We
quick,
do.
take a quick moment and do that. And then while we're doing that, I just want to thank Greg and Ryan so much for the resources that you guys provided and your time and your knowledge. And I think we just are starting to kind of peel back one or two layers of the onion, but there's certainly a lot more that we can cover. So appreciate it. And thank you. Thank you guys.
Don't gloat about your win too much, Essen Macher. We're going to get you back in round 2.
I mean, I'm going to put it all up on socials. I mean, I took screenshots of that, and we have witnesses. We have like 50 witnesses. I'm loving that.
I think
So,
Ryan
yeah,
wants a
definitely.
rematch.
That's right.
Yeah, well, we'll do that when we do the live event.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Live patient rematch.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Have
Thanks
a
for the
wonderful evening,
opportunity
everyone. Thank
to
you.
share.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.